All right, welcome to another Warhammer battle here. This is Otter, and I'm going to show you a matchup featuring a Beastman player named Sindri Meyer, Sindrimyr, and then myself as the Dark Elves. So this is a really tough build for Dark Elf players to deal with, and Sindri beat me a couple times with variants of this build. So basically the way that it works is you go really artillery heavy. So you've got this Malagor, the Dark Omen, and it has access to summon uh, a Cygor, which with the Savage Dominion skill, which is basically those giant monsters that chuck boulders at you. And then he's got Mantle of Gorok. So if the Cygor has to be in close combat, you can cast Mantle of Gorok on the Cygor, and the Cygor hits pretty hard, right? So plus 40% armor pen damage and plus 40% weapon damage and plus 44 melee attack on that Cygor is just like it's so hard to deal with. He can put out a world of hurt. And then you take a Brave Shaman. He takes a Brave Shaman of Beast with transformation of the Kadon. So he has basically a flying disposable interrupt unit that he can summon and just prevent you from getting where you want to go on the approach or slowing you down. And then to boot, he brought a couple units of skirmish cav, so four of them in total. Cygors with throwing axes, so that would prevent any sort of airplay from myself. And the Cygors with throwing axes, they're also very hard for Dark Elves to deal with. If you look at them, they have a speed of 95, and in general, that's something Dark Elves really struggle with. High speed. Skirmish cavalry are a nightmare for Dark Elves to deal with because Dark Elf players typically go pretty light on shooting, and so you will sometimes see Dark Shards or Shades, but most of the time you're not going to see too many Dark Shards or Shades because the Dark Elves need a certain amount of infantry in order to be wide enough to match the width of other armies. So Skirmish Cav, if you're playing against Dark Elf players, is very, very strong, as is just shooting in general is strong against Dark Elves. That said, I'm going to get right into it, and we'll see how this goes. So I knew I was playing Beastmen, right? And you can say, oh, Otter, what the hell? Why are you corner camping? And you're being a jerk, and I get that, sure. But I also know Beastmen can Vanguard, and because I didn't want to get fully surrounded, I wanted to play a little bit tighter towards the corner. I guess there is a little ledge here. I'm not sure if they can get down from here or not, but so I'm not, completely in the corner, but I definitely did not want to get like a full surround for Beastmen, which I know is they're just capable of going a lot wider than me. So I also wanted to be patient. In the past, I've sort of pushed up, and that sort of plays into the schemes of Malagor and his little wizard because they'll interrupt me on the approach. I'll take a ton of damage from boulders, and it's going to be very hard. I also took some very low-cost infantry because I didn't want to give the boulders like great very expensive infantry to throw their boulders at. Like I was anticipating that the Beastman player would bring that artillery build because it's something I've seen a lot. And I was hoping that my repeater bolt thrower was going to be able to sort of maybe not win against all of those Cygor summons, but at least keep them honest or try and hurt them a little bit. So here comes the first Cygor. He's gearing up. He's ready to pound his way in on me. I did get a little bit too excited here with the bolt thrower, and it started taking a little bit of damage from these Centaurs with throwing axes. So I was like, crap, if I lose my bolt thrower, then I'm going to lose all ability to be patient and sort of sit back. And credit to Sindri Meyer. Like, he's really probing the gaps here. He probably could have slipped right through here and sacrificed this Centaur just to take this offline. But I wanted to screen him out as much as possible, and I'm trying to be very disciplined with these Dread Spears. And I'm letting them take the boulders. I'm letting them take the arrow fire from the skirmish cav. Just trying to deplete his ammo, and then I'm going to start trading shots. So I think not sure why my bolt thrower is shooting in at the Centaurs. I don't think that was intentional. I will eventually, I think, transfer it over here to the Cygor, but they don't have huge leadership, so yeah, it's not the end of the world. But I do, yeah, you can see there you go. So I did retransition it over to the Cygor, so that was a little bit of a mistake. So the first unit of Dread Spears, I've already lost tons of models off of them. So 90 units, they started off with 90 models, so this one's already down to 30. So I had to bring in the bleak swords from reserve to basically plug that gap and prevent the repeater bolt thrower from getting sniped. The leadership of this unit of Dread Spears is also so low. So again, I'm just doing everything I can to kind of plug the gaps, and I know these units are going to lose their models. They're going to break off, but eventually they will rally if they don't get chased off the map, and then I can basically send them right back to where they came from and plug the gap again. And I'm just biding my time and waiting for this ammo to be depleted. Now, if the ammo of these Centaurs with throwing axes is used on the on the Dread Spears, that's fantastic news for me, because that opens up the airplay game for Hellebron, who I decided to take on a Manticore just for fun, with the support of two other Manticores, because I figured Hellebron on a Manticore with two other Manticores is going to be able to put a beating into a Cygor if necessary. And my Bolt Thrower is paying dividends for me, because I've been able to keep it online. It's taken one of the Cygors down to half health, and I haven't lost any of my artillery pieces. I still have all three online and firing, even though I've taken a little bit of damage. It is going to trade upwards with the Cygor. I also have a Fireball on my Sorceress, who can chip in, again, additional damage on this Cygor. So you see the Fireball just hit, and I'm just trying to be very, very, very patient. So the Wizard and the Bolt Thrower is not a lot of shooting, but it's just enough to sort of equalize some of the Cygor play. And now with the damage sustained by this first Cygor, it's going to be falling apart, and then so a second Cygor has been summoned. So now it's the same thing. It's the waiting game, and I know Malagor is using a lot of Winds of Magic to summon these Cygors, and so if the ammo's depleted on these Centaurs, if the ammo's depleted on the Cygors, suddenly I have a chance to sort of really start pushing my infantry forward, and kind of take it to these infantry. All of my valuable infantry I've kept in reserve. Like the Corsairs are way back, so all I'm losing is Dread Spears and Dark Shards, and there's been no sort of Centaurs to basically come around the flank and attack them, which is really nice for me. So the waiting game goes on, and neither one of us really wants to push in, which for Dark Elf players is really against our instincts, because usually Dark Elf, you just want to charge in, and plus the balance bar is tilting very heavily in Sindri Meyer's favor. So I was really not sure if this tactic was going to work out, but now the second Cygor that has been summoned is basically dead. Bolt Thrower has been an absolute champ. It's almost out of ammo, but I still have all three of my artillery pieces, and it sort of neutralized the Cygor threat with the sword of the Fire Sorceress. So all of a sudden, now it's turning into who is going to win the infantry fight, because two of these units of throwing axes have lost their ammo. Almost another 2 units have lost their ammo. So now I have Crone Hellebron and 2 Manticores who are going to go to town on basically everything on their roster. There's nothing the Beastmen have now that can counter the Manticores, because they've wasted all of the ammo of these Centaurs on my Dread Spears and Dark Shards. So I think a little bit, if the Beastman player was maybe a little bit more disciplined with that ammo, then this fight still could have gotten really out of hand for me very, very quickly. So now that the Cygors are out, I've got the artillery pieces just trying to take out the Bestigor herd, because I think they were the only infantry that I was going to struggle to take down. I knew I had Corsairs who could deal with Gore herd basically all day long, but these Bestigors were a problem for me. Hellebron and the 2 Manticores, they dive in to the Bray Shaman and take him offline. And there's all of this skirmish cavalry, right? You've got Centaurs with throwing axes. You got these Chaos Warhounds with poison, and he's pinning me here, right? So, I mean, normally that's what you want to do against, individual targets, but he has nothing to punish me for getting pinned. He has no Centaurs with great weapons. He has no Gorble. He has no Minotaurs. So I'm just having a field day in here. And Crone Hellebron has a Cursed Blade item, right? Like, she's designed for dealing with blobs. So if she's winning a combat, right, her Cursed Blade is going to be doing damage to combatants in this ball. Plus, I brought the Fire Sorceress specifically to deal with this type of horde play. So, two huge spells here. I cast the Vortex and the Blade Wind, or sorry, the Burning Head, and look at it, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 units of Beastmen just get completely wrecked and flee off the field. And the Bestigor herds in here fighting, but without support, Hellebron and those two Manticores are going to just completely wreck them. Doomfire Warlock's getting here on the Gore herd. I am going to lose my Repeater Bolt Thrower, but I don't care at this point because it was out of ammo anyways. The Corsairs, I'm going to just be maneuvering them away from these Bestigor herd wherever I can, getting them focused on the Gore herd where they're going to do pretty well, or at least be most effective. Cauldron, two Manticores, and Hellebron are now free to get onto the target that they covet the most, which is Malagor the Dark Omen. If I can take the Beastman leadership off of the field, pretty much everything else will likely flee. So these units, they did rally, but at this point, like I said, there's nothing on their roster that can deal with the large of the two Manticores, the Cauldron, and Hellebron. So I'm just going to fast forward at this point because it's just a cleanup from here. So about Sindri Meyer's build, I like the idea of Malagor the Dark Omen because it gives Beastmen the option to take a ranged approach so that it's just harder. It should be hard to counterpick people in general. Like you shouldn't be able to go into a matchup knowing 100% what type of army to expect from your opponent. And most of the Beastmen plays centered around rushing. So having Malagor the Dark Omen to offer the possibility of some range support is a good thing. But if you become completely dependent on your opponent rushing you, and they ought not to do that, you better have a backup plan. And I think Sindri Meyer didn't have that in this particular matchup. And so I think that's why I was able to pull out the victory. But it was a very tough fight for me, and there were a few moments where I was really doubting if it was going to turn in my favor. I had to be very, very disciplined, even when the balance bar was shifting, really far towards the end of the spectrum that I didn't want it to. But yeah, props to Sindri Meyer. It is a very tough build to beat. The Centaurs with throwing axes are, like I said, they're a nightmare for Dark Elves to deal with. I think you just got to be really, really careful about how you use that ammo. But great game, and I hope to play him again sometime on Ladder. Thanks so much. Bye. Last thing. It's nice to see some Beastmen players on Ladder because I think it's one of the underpowered factions. So if you're brave and you go on Ladder playing Beastmen, then props to you. Cheers. Bye.